Arturo Rico, hello and welcome.
Francisco Murillo, thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me to your podcast. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Art, we have known each other for 32 years.
But I'm only 35.
I don't know how that works. I know.
Me neither.
I think we met, we definitely met in a past life, if there is such a thing.
Right.
I think so.
Probably a past life in London, England.
Oh, yes.
Definitely.
Love London. Mm-hmm. But today we're not going to talk about London.
Oh, that's too bad.
We're going to talk about something different. Something that is beyond words. Since I met you, you were always wondering who your father was. You
Yes.
grew up with a mother and with two brothers.
Yes, two younger brothers.
Two younger brothers. And since I've known you every so often, you would bring up the fact that you wondered who your father was. Who was this mystery man?
Yes.
You didn't have much to go by. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about your journey, how it marked you, what it led to, and who you are today.
Thank you. Well, yes, I grew up the oldest of three boys that my mother had. Since from my earliest memories, there was no father in my life, no father figure present in my life. And so, yes, I grew up wondering about him, what happened between he and my mom. And my mom never spoke to me about him. She never spoke to me about him. So I thought to myself, well, if she's not going to talk to me about him, it's because she doesn't want to talk to me about him, because maybe she had a bad experience with him and she doesn't want to bring up that bad experience. And so I thought, well, if she's not going to talk to me about him, then I'm not going to ask her, because I don't want to bring up any bad experience that my mom might have had with my father. So I never asked her about him. I just came up with my own conclusion at a very young age that my father abandoned me. He abandoned me. He rejected me. I wasn't worthy of his time, of his love. And so at that moment, I started having abandonment issues, feeling abandoned, rejected, unloved, unwanted. And yes, I had my mother in my life always, but sometimes also with my mom, I felt unloved, because for her, it was hard to be affectionate, to say the words, I love you, what a child needs to feel loved, hearing the words, getting hugs and kisses. And my mother was not able to do that. I later learned eventually why she was unable to do that, because of her childhood too, her traumas as a child. But before I understood what she went through as a child, I as a child was feeling abandoned, rejected, unloved, unwanted. And I always felt a fear of abandonment, of the people in my life that I loved were going to abandon me.
Mm-hmm.
And I also felt like I didn't belong. Because if I don't belong to my father, then who do I belong to? So, yeah, it was all these layers of feeling abandoned. So, yeah, that was me growing up. Feeling abandoned, rejected, unloved, unwanted, feeling like I don't belong. And to top it off, also, I was being teased by my older cousins who were calling me Hoto and Sissy. I didn't understand what Hoto meant. I didn't know why they were being so mean to me. But Hoto is the Spanish word for faggot. So they were being very mean to me, teasing me, bullying me, just for me expressing myself as it felt comfortable and natural for me as a child. I didn't know I was gay. I didn't know what gay meant. I didn't know that gay people existed. So that's what I was dealing with also, on top of feeling, all this other stuff. And then also growing up poor. I didn't know we were poor until I reached maybe my teen years and I realized, oh yeah, we're poor. We were up on welfare and food stamps. So there was a lot going on.
So you've just discussed growing up, how that was without a father, the things that were happening, your surroundings. When did you decide that you wanted to go a step further and find out who your father was?
I was always curious as to who my father was. And as a young boy, I just would look at other men in my family, people that were my mom's cousin or even brother-in-law, and think, could that be my father?
Mm-hmm.
Could that be my father? Like,
Mm-hmm.
at a young age, I didn't realize or understand that that's your mom's cousin. She didn't have sex with her cousin, and that's not your father. That's your mom's brother-in-law. She didn't have sex with the brother-in-law. That's not your father. Also, um, so yeah, of course, I was always curious who he was, but I never asked my mom because she never told me. So, like I said, she's not going to talk to me about him, so I'm not going to ask her about him.
Okay.
And so the way I see it, I was born with a completed puzzle on my mom's side of the family. This is your mother, your maternal grandparents, your aunts, your uncles, your cousins. These are your brothers. But then on my father's side of the family, well, where's the puzzle? There was no puzzle there. But slowly, the pieces of the puzzle started to show up in my life. And the first piece of the puzzle was my father's name. I found it on my birth certificate. It was right there on my birth certificate. Leo Garcia. His age when I was born, my mother put down 28. My mother was 30, he was 28. I thought, okay, well, you know, she put my father's name on my birth certificate. There it is. And that's how I learned his name, Leo Garcia.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, okay, well, he was 28 when I was born in 66. That means that he was born in 1938.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, yeah, she knew him, but where was he? So, as I'm going through life, also feeling sometimes these feelings of abandonment would flare up,
Mm-hmm.
especially in relationships with friends. When I would get really close to someone that I loved as a friend, I would start feeling this fear that they're going to abandon me, they're going to leave me because I'm not worthy of their time anymore. They found someone better than me to hang out with. And also sometimes just being in a room full of people, friends, family, whatever, I would often feel like I didn't belong there. Like, I don't belong here. What am I doing here? No one's going to miss me if I'm not here. I'm just going to leave. And I never understood why I felt that way. Of course, later on, I realized it was because of the issues I had developed as a young child, these that of abandonment. So,
And what is so interesting is because I've known you for so many years, during all this time, you were one of the popular ones of the group of friends that we were part of. Everybody knew who Art was. Art, the funny one. Art, the mother figure. Art, the performer. Art, the great dancer. All of this. And so there, you have all these qualities, yet inside a whole different world.
inside, there was still a wounded child,
Mm.
longing for his father, longing to feel, I don't know, accepted,
Loved and accepted, of
loved, and a
course.
sense of belonging. And yes, I
Cherished.
had great friends, including yourself, had great times, but those feelings would flare up every now and then. I never understood why. They were there. And so, my best friend back in the 90s, and you know who I'm talking about, especially with him, I, I started having this fear that he was going to abandon me, leave me. Like I said, find someone better than me to hang out with. And and the fear of him abandoning me was creating the reality because I was just a mess, sometimes driving him crazy. And I had to stop. I really had to stop. And another thing, another effect of this, not having my father in my life, is my search for a romantic relationship. And the men that I'm often attracted to are men that are a reflection of my father, non-existent in my life. So whenever I was attracted to a man, it was never going to work out because usually they're straight, and even if they were gay, maybe I'd go out with a guy on one date or two, but nothing ever developed into a relationship. So that's another effect of not having my father in my life. Wanting the man that, always wanting what I can't have. Always being attracted to men that I cannot have, that I cannot be with, who are not attracted to me. And yes, they're usually straight. And if they're married, then that's even more of a turn on. And if they have children, well, then that's the complete package for me. So that's another issue that I've been working on dealing with. So, and yes, Frankie, I do love to dance. And I always thought that I got my dancing skills, my passion for dancing from my father. Because when I would see my mom dance at a party, she did her best.
But it wasn't the level of where you were and are at.
No. I thought, well, okay, well, at least she's trying, but why do I love to dance so much? Maybe I got it from my father. Oh, well, will I ever find out? I don't know. So, this is my childhood, my teen years, my young adult years. And then finally, I was just so curious and wanting to know something, anything about my father. I mean, I didn't even have a picture of him. There was no pictures. My mom didn't have any pictures of my father. Nothing. I didn't know what he looked like. All I knew his name, Leo Garcia, born 1938. Oh, and Mexican, because that's the nationality that my mom put on my birth certificate, that he was Mexican. So I finally asked my aunt, my godmother, one of my mom's older sisters, and this was back in 1995. I asked her, do you know anything about my father? And she told me, all I know is that your mother met your father when she was in Northern California. And I thought, Northern California? What was she doing up there? And my aunt continues, and when your mom came back from Northern California, she didn't know she was pregnant. And at that moment, I thought to myself, if my mom didn't know she was pregnant when she left my father in Northern California, then my father never knew that he got her pregnant. And my mom never went looking for him in Northern California after she found out she was pregnant with me to tell him. So my father never knew he got my mother pregnant. He never knew he had a son born to this woman that he had known in Northern California. He never knew I existed. And at that moment, I realized, wait a minute, if he doesn't even know that I exist, then he never abandoned me. All my life, I thought my father had abandoned me and rejected me, didn't want me, didn't love me, which caused all these issues for me, and it was never the truth. I made it up. And it was a lie. He never even knew. And so at that moment, I had this profound healing that I was never abandoned. I do belong. It's like, wow, the truth really did set me free. Okay, awesome. And I was healed of that. Feeling like I don't belong, I do belong. But then whenever a question is answered, it always leads to another question. Okay, so now the question is, what was my mom doing in Northern California? Where in Northern California did they meet? And how did they meet?
And who is he?
And still, who is he? Who is this Leo Garcia that's on my birth certificate? So, the first piece of the puzzle was finding his name on my birth certificate. Now, eventually, I did learn. The other piece of the puzzle started to, I started to find them. And the piece of the puzzle that led me to discover that the city that they met in Northern California, is Woodland, California, 12 miles north of Sacramento. And another piece of the puzzle that I found was that they met at a dance, which makes sense to me. I love to dance. They met at a dance. Okay, there you go.
It's
They
in
were
your
at a
blood.
dance. Yes, it is. And I'm not going to say how I find these pieces of the puzzle, but I found them. There they are. So I'm putting the pieces of the puzzle together to form the story, the bigger picture. So fast forward now to 2016, when I take my DNA test through the Ancestry.com website. I ordered the DNA test kit, I received it, I sent the sample back to them, and then maybe 2-3 weeks later, I get notification that your DNA results have come in. Now, I took my DNA results to see what I was made of. I knew I was, my mom's Mexican. I knew that I was native Mexican, the indigenous Mexican, and I knew I was Spanish too. But what else was lurking within me? So yes, I am Mexican, Spanish, uh, Portuguese, Basque. I'm 3% Irish. Where did that come from? And then I'm also like Welsh and Scottish. I'm like, where did that come from? Filipino, and so many other things. Like, wow, look at me. I'm just made up of all these different, nationalities. And so it was awesome to discover that. But what I didn't know, Francisco, when I took the DNA test and I got my results, is that you were also matched with other people who had also taken their DNA tests to see who you were related to. Like, oh, this is
Mhm.
interesting. And looking at these DNA matches, like, and I recognized some names from my mom's side of the family, but the names I didn't recognize were obviously from my dad's side of the family. And a lot of them showed up as second cousin, third cousin. Oh. And what I also didn't know is that you could reach out to these people. You can send them a message. Like, really? So if I send a message to one of these people, one of these DNA matches that I don't recognize from my mom's side, obviously from my dad's side, I could send them a message and possibly find my father through them? Oh, okay. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to do it. So I sent out a message to 5 of these DNA matches, telling them, "Hi, my name is Arturo. I see that we have the same DNA. Is there someone in your family named Leo Garcia? I'm looking for my father, and he never knew that he got my mom pregnant. He doesn't even know about me." So I had my hopes set high that somebody
Mhm.
was going to reach out and tell me, "Oh yes, I know him." Um, so I waited for some replies, and I waited, and I waited and waited. Finally, I got one reply from someone that said, "I have no idea who Leo Garcia is." Oh, okay. All right. All right. Well, this didn't work out. It's not going to work out. So, okay, never mind. And so for the next year, I would get more DNA matches, people from my mom's side and people from my father's side, but, third cousin, fourth cousin. They're too far removed, from my father to
Mhm.
have known him or know who he was or have heard the name. So I let it go. A year later, in November, I got a new DNA match. Someone that I didn't recognize from my mom's side of the family, someone who had to be from my father's side of the family, and who showed up as a first cousin. Like,
Mhm.
oh, we're closer. We're closer. Okay, first cousin. If this is a first cousin, then they have to know my father. Maybe I don't know how, but they have to be. I know they're related to my father, but how close to my father are they? So I thought, okay, let's try this again. So I sent another message to this one person, but I wasn't very specific. I just said, "Hi, is there anyone in your family named Leo Garcia?" I didn't tell them that I was looking for my father or anything. Just, is there someone in your family named Leo Garcia? I sent the message and I just went about my life. A month later, I get an email from Ancestry saying, "Oh, you have a reply to your message that you sent a month ago." Like, oh yeah, I did send a message to somebody about my father. And I thought before I opened the email, oh, they're going to tell me I have no idea who Leo Garcia is. I don't know what you're talking about. Sorry, I can't help you. So I opened the message, and they said, Leo Garcia is my uncle, and it was also my grandfather's name. And I thought, oh my God, is this going to happen? Am I finally going to find my father? Oh my God, I was amazed. I was shocked. And I thought, okay, so if this person is my first cousin, and this person has an uncle, it was a girl, and she has an uncle whose name is Leo Garcia. I'm her first cousin, then her uncle is my father. Oh, and it was also the grandfather's name. So my daddy was a junior. Like, oh my God. Okay. So then I sent another message. Hi, I do believe that your Uncle Leo is my father. He and my mother met at a dance in 1965, but never knew that he got her pregnant. So I thought I would get a reply, but maybe weeks later, because the first message I sent in November, I finally got a message back in December. So I thought I'm going to hear from this person in another month or so. But the next day, I get another message from this person. So I had told her, I do believe your Uncle Leo is my father. He and my mom met at a dance in 1965. The reply was, well, it couldn't be my Uncle Leo because in 1965, Uncle Leo was only 13 years old. And I thought, oh my God, did my mother have sex with a 13-year-old boy? But yet, wait, they met at a dance. What was a 13-year-old boy doing at a dance?
No.
I don't understand. Did he look older than his age? Oh my God, I don't know what's happening. I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone. Like, what is going on around here? No. This doesn't make sense. But then it was also the grandfather's name. Wait, could the grandfather be my father? But if he was born in 1938 and he had a son in 1953, that means that he had to be 15 when his son was born in 1953. Okay, well, that's possible. I mean, I have a cousin who became a father at 14, but things weren't adding up. I was really confused. And so I sent another message saying, well, I don't know what's going on. All I know is that they met at a dance in Woodland. This time I mentioned Woodland, California. And then I had sent a picture of myself. I had attached a picture in the message. I think by this time we were sending by email. Yeah, because in one of the messages I said, well, here's my email so we can communicate easier and better. And so I sent a picture of myself to see if the picture was, okay, here's a picture of myself to see if I resemble anyone you know in your family. And so they get the picture. Unbeknownst to me, they're also freaking out because they realize, oh my God, yes, this person is related to us. But they wanted me to figure it out. So instead of telling me, oh no, it's not my Uncle Leo, it's my grandfather who's your father, they send another reply with an attachment of themselves saying, with an attachment. So I sent the email with my picture, a picture I had taken maybe 4 days ago at a Christmas company party. And I was looking really nice. I had my Elvis hairdo. And so I sent them the picture. Then they replied telling me, okay, well, I don't know what's going on either, but here's a picture of my grandfather to see if he resembles anyone you know. And when I finished reading that, I realized that it wasn't the uncle who's my father, it was the grandfather. Oh my God. And I was about to see my father's face for the very first time. I was so ecstatic. I just couldn't control myself. So I pressed on the attachment button, and it was downloading. And then it said, okay, press here to upload picture. And I pressed the button. The picture popped up on my phone screen, and the first thing I saw was a beautiful, thick, full head of black hair. From just the hair alone, I knew that that was my father. I had finally found my father. There he was. And I'm looking at his hairline. Oh, that's my hairline. I'm looking at the shape of his face. That's my face. I'm looking at his eyebrows. Those are my eyebrows. I'm looking at his hair. Like, that's my hair. And I was, oh my God, I just couldn't, a dream of a lifetime had come true at that moment. I just couldn't believe it. I'm there, I'm staring at my father's face, taking it all in, taking it all in. It was amazing. I was giddy. I was crying tears of joy. I was jumping. I was shouting. Like, I was saying, thank you, God. And I replied back saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. Your grandfather is my father. This is a dream come true. Oh my God, I'm so happy. And then they replied back, well, we're so happy for you. And one more thing you should know about your father. I'm like, yes. He was married and he and his wife had 11 kids. You have 11 new siblings. Like, oh my God. And wait, I just wanted to find my father. Now I find I have 11 siblings. And the 11th child that they had, turns out, is 3 months and 20 days older than me. So I did the math, 3 days and 20 days older than me. So that means that when my father met my mother at this dance, his wife was pregnant with their 11th child. Like, oh, daddy? So what type of man would leave his wife and his pregnant wife and 10 kids at home and go out to a dance? Well, whatever the type of man he was, thank God, because if not, I wouldn't be here. Hey. So, yeah, I learned later on that he did cheat on his wife a couple times. So it was amazing. I was sitting with this for days, not telling anyone. But then I freaked out, Frankie, when I realized that before I tell anyone else, I'm going to have to tell my mom that I found my father. I was so nervous and afraid to tell her because we had never spoken about it. And I didn't know how she was going to react. I was really nervous. I didn't want to. I thought, no, I'm not going to tell her. But you have to tell her. You can't tell everybody else and then have someone else, tell your mom. You don't want her to learn about this from somebody else. You have to tell her yourself. I thought, oh, okay. So that was a Thursday when I found my father. Oh, another thing I need to mention also is that my father had passed away in 2001. He died of cancer. So I never had the chance to meet my father. But I told myself before I started, actually looking for him with a DNA test and reaching out to these people that I had to be open and accepting of whatever the outcome was going to be. If he's still alive, great. If he passed away, okay, he passed away. And I also thought to myself, well, am I his only child? Was he one of these swinging 60s playboys that just went from one woman to another, and maybe I'm one of many, many kids he had. But the scenario that never came up was that he was married and that he and his wife had 11 kids. That's something I just never even thought of. And wow. So I didn't tell anyone. It was Thursday night. Friday I went to work. Didn't tell anyone. Saturday I had a Christmas party here in my apartment. Didn't tell anyone. Sunday didn't tell anyone. Monday I had a day off from work, so I went to my mom's. I picked her up and we drove to my cousin's house. And so we visited my cousin and my aunt. And my mom and my aunt were in the back house, and I went to the front house and to see my cousin. And that's when I told her the news. So my cousin Tina was the first person I told, and she was really happy and excited for me. But then I also needed advice from her, like, how am I going to tell this? How am I going to tell my mom this news? I'm going to share it with her. We've never talked about it. My father. I don't know what to do. And my cousin reassured me, oh, tell her she'll be fine. She'll be happy for you. She will. She will? Yeah, tell her. Okay, I will. So we left my cousin's house, drove back to my mom's house, and it was already in the evening, 7 o'clock. And we're in my mom's bedroom when I give myself a pep talk saying, Art, it's now or never. You got to tell her right now. It's now or never. Just, let go of your fears. Just tell her. Okay, I'm going to tell her. So I said, Mom, sit down. I have something to tell you. So we sat on her bed, and I took a deep breath in, and she's looking at me thinking, what does this child have to say to me? Oh, good Lord, what's going on? And I just told her, Mom, I found my father. And she said, no. Her eyes opened wide. She flinched back like, no. And I thought, oh Lord, which way is this no going? No, I don't want to hear about it. Don't talk to me about him. No, I don't believe you. No, no, no. And I said, yes. And she asked me how. And I said, on the internet. I didn't go into the details of the DNA test. I said, on the internet, nowadays you can find anything and anyone on the internet. And then I said, look. And I showed her the picture. And she looked at the picture. She went like this. Well, he's much younger in this picture, but that's him. And oh, what a great dancer he was. Like, oh my God. So my mom still remembers when they met at the dance and what a great dancer he was. So obviously my father had the right moves on the dance floor, and then eventually, in the bedroom. So she and 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 then she again surprised me so beautifully when she said, congratulations, because now you know where you come from. And at that moment, I felt my love for my mother grow, just expand. My heart just went.
Beautiful.
Growing up thinking my mom didn't love me because it was hard for her to say the words I love you, or to be affectionate, or to be hugging me or kissing me. My mom has always loved me. She has always loved me. And here she is showing me, proving to me how much she loves me, because she was happy for me. And at that moment also, I realized that too, that this was a burden that she was carrying within herself, and that she had freed herself from that burden. Like she was relieved, like, oh, thank God he found his father. Thank God. She was truly happy for me. And I gave her a hug and I kissed. And then I told her, oh, and by the way, my daddy was married, and I have 11 new siblings. She goes, what? And I had also it turned out that my DNA match was a niece, not a cousin, like it had said on Ancestry's website. It was a niece, and so she had also sent me a picture of my father and his wife and the 11 kids they had when they were kids, teenagers, babies back in the 60s. And I showed her the picture also of my father and his family. She goes, oh, wow. Well, you have to meet them. Like, oh my God. My mother is giving me her blessing to meet my newfound family. She's giving me her encouragement, her support. Who is this woman? Oh, I love her so much. And our relationship also just, it had gotten better, before, but here we are having this beautiful moment talking about my father, a topic of conversation that we never had before. My father was never a topic of conversation. And here we are now finally talking about him. She's happy for me. She's giving me her blessing to meet my newfound family. And I did tell her, well, he passed away in 2001. So it was amazing. It was beautiful. It felt like I was flying through the sky on a magic carpet. Yes, I felt like Jasmine without Aladdin. Who needs Aladdin? So it was amazing. And after that, I was ready to tell everybody. So yeah, I started sharing this news with the world, seeing friends and family. They were all so happy for me. And after telling people about the story of how I found my father through the DNA test, they would tell me, oh, you should write a book. You should write a book. You should write a book. This is an amazing story. You should write a book. And every time that somebody would tell me I should write a book, I would tell them, no, write a book. That's not much of a book. I took a DNA test. I found my father. End of story. There. I'm not going to write a book. No. So I started meeting my father's side of my family, but also I was getting calls from people from my father's side of the family, because amongst them, they were also spreading the news. Oh my God, we found, Grandpa has a son living in LA. And because, yeah, they knew when I sent the picture of myself that, they saw Grandpa's face. They knew this was Grandpa's son, but they didn't want to tell me. They wanted me to figure it out, and I did. And so, yes, they went to and his wife is still alive. They were married for over 50 years. and they went to tell her. And this was her reaction when she found out that, her husband had a son with another lady. Well, I'm not surprised, and I'm sure there's probably more out there, more kids that he had. So she knew, he cheated on her. But, you know, that was my dad. And so I got a call from somebody who turned out to be a cousin living in Orange County. And I'm in LA County, and Orange County is right next door. So I have a cousin in Orange County. Then I have cousins in Riverside County, also just, right next door. Like, oh wow, I have family here close to me. So I started, the first person I met from my dad's side of the family is my cousin, Francisco. His name is also Francisco. There you go. A lot of Franciscos in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I met him, and he also had that thick hair. Like, oh yeah, that's my cousin. And we got along so well, he and his wife. And then I met my cousins in Riverside. And then I finally went up to Northern California, to Woodland, because I still have family in Woodland in the Sacramento area. And so the first sister that I met, we met in the parking lot of the motel that I was staying at. Her daughter, my niece, was driving. They pulled into the parking lot. I'm waiting outside, and then I see them. They park the car, and I walk over to my sister who's getting out of the car, and we embrace. And when I embraced her, she started to cry, and it felt like I had known her all my life. That bond was strong, that blood was thick, and it felt like I had known her all my life. And then I hugged my niece, and then I met other nieces, and it turns out that there was 2 uncles also living up there, so I met them, and it was just amazing. And now the sister, who's 3 months and 20 days older than me, she lives in Florida, but she flew out to Sacramento to also meet me. And when I met her, oh my God, I just picked her up and spun her around, and I mean, we're just, we're like twins, we're so close in age, and we get along so well. We're practically skipping.
Like twins.
Yeah, like twins. And we're practically skipping through Old Sacramento. They call it Old Sac. And it was just amazing. And I have a cousin up there also who I met, who was just, oh my God, so full of love and light and a beautiful soul. And also everyone I met made me feel so welcomed and accepted. And it was amazing. I just felt like I felt so comfortable just being myself. Now, before I met them also, and I was getting these calls and text messages from people, my sister, the one that lives in Florida, her husband also sent me a text saying, "Say, hey, how's it going? Welcome to the family. And so are you married? Do you have any kids?" I thought, let's see how they take this news. So I said, "I'm not married. I'm gay." And then his reply was, "That's a beautiful thing, brother." I'm like, oh, okay. Okay, we're good to go. And yeah, they accepted me. They love me as I am,
right,
for who I am, what I am. And because, like I said, when I was a younger kid, I was teased and bullied for being different, for being effeminate, for playing with dolls or whatever, and I was made to feel that there was something wrong with me. And this new family, not everyone on my side of the family, especially there were just 2 main older cousins who were the bullies. But on my dad's side of the family, they just accepted me as I am. And that was wonderful. I just felt so comfortable with that. Being as gay as I want to be, whatever. They didn't care. And it was a wonderful experience for me. And also while I was there at my uncle's house, he calls my aunt who lives in Tijuana. So it turns out I also have family in Tijuana. I mean, I have family in Tijuana from my mom's side of the family, and I've been going to Tijuana since I was 4 years old. I love Tijuana. I love my Aunt Concha, and all my cousins are over there. So now I'm finding out that I have more family in Tijuana on my dad's side. So my uncle, while I was visiting him in Sacramento, calls his sister, my Aunt Cruz. And then I'm talking to her on the phone, and she's also happy and excited that I found them. And she asked me, "When are you going to come visit me?" And through that phone conversation, she was just so loving and kind and caring. She made me cry. And I
Hmm.
said, "Oh, I'm going to go visit you soon." Yeah, yeah. Because she thought I also lived up in Northern California in Sacramento. But I told, "Oh, no, I live in Los Angeles." "Oh, you're so close." Yeah. So I went to visit her, stayed with her and my uncle, her husband. I met my cousins from her side. And it was beautiful. It was wonderful. We got along so well. And also, my cousin lives in Sacramento. Her siblings still live in Tijuana. So we all got together at my cousin's house, and it was amazing. It was wonderful. And okay, I love to dance, and these cousins, who are cousins from, okay, it was my uncle. What was his name? Uncle, no, not Luis. My uncle, I forgot his name. One of the uncles. He also had 11 kids, and all those cousins love to dance too. Like, oh wow, yep, these are my cousins. This is my family. The same passion that I have for dancing, the same skills, the same sabor. They
Mm-hmm.
also have it, and like, these are my cousins. So it was amazing. It was wonderful. And then I finally got to bring my two sides of the family together when I took my mom to meet my cousin Francisco and his wife, and they got along so well. It's as if they also had known each other all their lives. It was amazing. It was beautiful. It was wonderful to see my mom get along with them so great. She was also just being herself, and it was wonderful. And my mom got to also meet my aunt Cruz, and they were like sisters. They got along like sisters. Like, oh my God, what's going on here? I loved it. Some of my other cousins, and it was a beautiful thing. And this was happening throughout 2018. Just a wonderful experience that I was having after having found my father, discovering this new family. So big. I mean, 11 siblings and uh, cousins and nieces and nephews and grandnieces and grandnephews and everybody. It was just amazing. Everything was going so well up until October 2018, when my brother Hector, the one I grew up with, he's 2 years younger than me, he got sick. He got sick uh, and went to the hospital and discovered that he had kidney failure. So he started his dialysis. And after 2 weeks in the hospital, he was able to get out of the hospital and was going to continue his dialysis treatments 3 times a week at a dialysis center. So he was out of the hospital for a day, and then his condition got worse. He was having trouble breathing. And so called the paramedics. They came and they took him back to the hospital. And the next day I get the call that my brother passed away. So here I was, you know, 2018 was such an amazing year, so much joy and happiness of, meeting my father's side of my family, my mom meeting my father's side of my family, and everything was going so well and beautiful. And I felt like I had climbed the top of a mountain. And when my brother passed away, I was just shoved off that mountain. I fell deep in heart into the pits of hell. It was just unbelievable, unbelievable. And I think 3 days after his funeral, I'm talking to my sister in Florida, telling her about the funeral and everything. And I told her, I cannot believe this year. This past year has been incredible, incredibly great, incredibly bad. This past year, my life has felt like a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And when I finished saying that, I had what I call my Scarlett O'Hara moment. If you've seen Gone with the Wind, at the end of the movie, when Rhett Butler leaves her, telling her, frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn, and she's distraught and she's crying, she walks back into the house, she throws herself on the floor, asking herself, what shall I do? What shall I do? And then she starts hearing the voice of her father and of Ashley Wilkes, everybody telling her, oh, there's nothing more that you love in this world than Tara. Tara's your home. Tara's your love. Tara, Tara, Tara. And she realizes, I'm going to go back home to Tara. Well, as soon as I finished telling my sister, this past year my life has felt like a movie. I started hearing the voices of family and friends who were telling me after I told them that I found my father, "Oh, you should write a book. You should write a book. Write a book. Write a book. Write a book." And I realized at that moment, I'm going to write a book. I am going to write a book. And so I tell my sister, "Well, I don't know if it'll ever be a movie, but it'll be a damn good book." So I decided to write a book on not just how I found my father, but what my life was like growing up without him, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and my relationship with my mom, and my
Mm-hmm.
relationship with my brother Hector, and my relationship with my brother Juan Carlos, who's 10 years younger than me.
Mm-hmm.
Because my mom, we're all from different fathers. I don't remember Hector's father. I was 2 years old when Hector was born. My earliest memory was when I was 3 years old.
Mm-hmm. Mine
But by
too.
this time, there was no man in our lives. Hector's
Mm-hmm.
father was not in our lives, so I don't know what happened to him. But when I was 9, my mom did get married to Juan Carlos's father. So that marriage didn't last. I think he was gone before Juan Carlos was born.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there's so much more to my life than just, the search for my father. Because I realized that, well, what I didn't know what was going to happen, something that took me by surprise in the search to find my father is that I ended up finding myself, my
Yes.
true self.
Beautiful.
All the lies that I came up with, that, oh, my father abandoned me, oh, my mom doesn't love me, it's all a lie. It was never true.
Mm.
And so it was a beautiful awakening of sorts within myself that I just wanted to find my father, but I ended up finding myself, my true self. And so when I started writing this book, I came up with the tagline. I never knew the search to find my father would lead me to finding myself. So
Beautiful.
it's a journey of really finding my true self, because I came up with the lie that, oh, no, he rejected me. And I want to share with you this quote I found also on social media. While I was writing this book, I found this quote, and it describes me, what I've been through, perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
And this quote is by Emily McDowell. Emily McDowell. Finding yourself is not really how it works. You aren't a $10 bill in last winter's coat pocket. You are also not lost. Your true self is right there, buried under cultural conditioning, other people's opinions, and inaccurate conclusions you drew as a kid that became your beliefs about who you are. Finding yourself is actually returning to yourself, an unlearning, an excavation, a remembering who you were before the world got its hands on you. Thank you, Emily McDowell. And so the book has been written, and it's also my mom's story of what her life was like in Mexico, what tragedy she went through, and how she came
Mm-hmm.
to the United States. And even though my father passed away in 2001, I got to learn so much about him from everybody who knew him, my
Mm-hmm.
sisters, my cousins, my uncles, my aunt. So I just, took all this information and wrote about his life, also his story, growing up in Mexico, the tragedies that he endured, and how he came to the United States, and how my parents eventually and finally met.
Mm.
And it's also my coming out story. I mean, I'm also, I'm gay. I realized I was gay, and I had no problem with it. Other people had problems with it, would bully me about it, but I had no problem with it. So it's my coming out story. It's my search for a romantic relationship, which I'm still looking for. Oh, so many daddy issues.
So
It's
the book is done, and
yes.
if anybody out there watching this is a literary agent or knows of one that would be interested in this type of book, please reach out. Right?
Thank you. Yes, yes. It was endless rewrites, endless. I thought I'm never going to finish this book. I'm just going to keep rewriting this book for the rest of my life. But finally, I finished it. And then I went back to it after 3 months, and I was able to see what I needed to change, what I needed to take away, what I needed to add. And so that was the second draft. And then again, I went back to it for a third draft, and I was able to make it, just my writing became, it was better, it was tighter, it was clearer, more descriptive, it's more of my essence, my nuance, my sense of humor, more of who I am. And yes, and it's just incredible how it just kept evolving. And I told myself also before I started writing this book, if you're going to write this, you have to be brutally honest.
Right.
Brutally honest. Just put it all out there. Yes,
Right.
sometimes I was the victim, but also throughout my life, sometimes I was the villain. That cycle of bullying.
Yes.
I was bullied, and so I needed an outlet, and I became a bully. I'm not going into the details, but yes, it's there.
Yes.
And also my spiritual awakening, when I healed that father wound, and also all the pieces of the puzzle that came together. Yes, I go into detail of how I found out that they met in Woodland, California, and that they met at a dance, and so much more information. And the writing process was sometimes very difficult, especially when I had to relive moments that I had suppressed, that I had pushed away. I just pushed them all the way far back as they can go into the deepest, darkest corners of my mind. And the guilt that I felt, regrets,
it's all there.
I had to bring it all out and relive it as I'm writing. And I'm crying. I am writing with tears in my eyes, just letting it out, which was the best thing I could have done, because I let it all go. The guilt I felt, the regrets I felt, I just let it all go, and I felt this weight lifted off of me. And it was very therapeutic, and it was a good experience for me.
Of course.
It really was. Yeah.
Now, I know we could continue on with this story because it's a story that's accumulated many years of your life. But we will leave the viewers to read your book when it comes out.
Okay, now, if there is a literary agent out there, a book publisher, how do they get in touch with you or me?
Well, I'm going to be putting this up on YouTube so they can leave comments.
Oh, okay.
And certainly if someone reaches out to me, of course, I'm going to reach out to you.
Definitely. Okay, well, this has been so much fun.
It's been beyond insightful. It's been also very healing for me. And I appreciate your honesty and your strength and your love.
Thank you, and I appreciate you and your friendship and your love too.
Thanks for being a part of today.
You're welcome.